Okay guys, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite chords. This is the dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11 chord. It's a mouthful, but it is so sick. In fact, some might say it's so stanky. Let's jump right into it, people. This is a great chord for jazz. It's a great chord for R&B. It's a great chord for gospel. And I'm really excited to share it with you because this was the chord that unlocked so much of the sound that I was after when I was learning how to play more advanced jazz chords. This was that chord that had the crunch, it had that sophistication, it's the chord that makes people go, woo! Anyway, let's jump right into it. Here's what we're doing today. First, I'm gonna do a quick demo. I'm gonna show you what the chord sounds like by contrasting it without the extra fancy flat 9, sharp 11 action, and then with it, so you can hear what it sounds like before and after. And then we're gonna do a review of extensions, a quick review, because obviously when we're talking about a chord like dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11, we have to know what extensions are. And then we're going to talk about 3 different voicing formulas because, as I said, it's a mouthful and a bit of a handful, though if you have the right approach to voicing these chords, it makes it a lot easier to understand the chord and then find the keys much more easily, much more quickly, and that's what it's all about, because when you're playing a complex chord, you don't want to be racking your brain for what the notes are. It's much easier if you have formulas that can help you get there. So after that, we're finally going to do some real world application. This is my favorite part because I'm going to use this chord, this voicing, in 3 different types of songs. We're going to do a jazz version, we're going to do an R&B song, and we're also going to do a gospel song. So just little excerpts from songs you probably know, and you can hear how this chord fits right in. But without further ado, let's get into it. Here is a simple 3-6-2-5 chord progression without the flat 9, sharp 11 chord. Nothing wrong with that. It's a very common jazz chord progression, and it sounds good with those chords. 7s can go a long way. But what we're going to do here is we're going to add some extra sauce on the A7 chord here and the G7 chord here, because those are our dominant 7 chords. So let's add the flat 9 and sharp 11 to both of those, and it's going to sound like this. So you can hear by adding those altered extensions, we really thicken up these voicings and make them sound a lot more interesting. So what am I doing? Well, to figure that out, we have to do, as I said, a quick review of extensions. If you have a G7 chord and you build out a scale, it's going to sound something like this. That's a G7 scale, G mixolydian, whatever name you want to use. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the 7 is a flat 7 because it's F natural there. But what if we want to add more notes? Well, we can add some extensions simply by continuing up the scale. So instead of stopping at 7, we go to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then what we're going to do is alter some of those extensions. So instead of just a regular 9, which would be A, we're going to make it a flat 9, which gives us A flat. And instead of the regular 11, which is C, we're going to go sharp 11, C sharp. And that's how you get this G7 flat 9 sharp 11 chord. Now, interestingly enough, and this is for the music theory nerds out there, is when you integrate these altered extensions, you actually get a different scale. And that scale is called the G half-whole diminished scale. Now, if that is just way over your head, don't worry about it. You don't need to know the scale to continue on with this lesson. It's just for the people who are interested. So real quick, that scale sounds like this. It's called a half-whole diminished scale because you have a half step, then a whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, and so on. Now, if I play this G half-whole diminished scale over the G7 flat 9 sharp 11 chord, you'll hear how well those two go together. Check it out. So if you want to solo on this chord, this G half-whole diminished scale is a great choice. But let's continue on because now it's time to talk about the spring sale before I forget. The spring sale ends tomorrow. That's Friday, April 4. So if you want to jump into any of my courses, whether it's about playing chord progressions or building chords or soloing, improvisation, lick packs, chord packs, Everything is on sale, including the bundles actually, which is where you can get the biggest savings. But if you like the kind of stuff you're learning right now in this lesson, you are going to love, for instance, chord theory for R&B piano right in there. And I know I call it R&B piano, but there's so much overlap between jazz and gospel. It's my flagship course for learning everything I know about how to build chords, chord progressions, reharmonizations, analysis. All of that is in there. So use the code SPRING30EXT at checkout to save 30%. I'll link that down in the description. Let's get on to the next slide though, because this is where we're going to learn the first voicing formula. This is voicing number 1. And it's pretty simple because again, even though there are a lot of notes to wrangle, we can use shapes and patterns to help us organize it a lot more easily. So here's the formula. You're going to do root plus tritone dom 7. Now, what is tritone dom 7? I think most of you know what the root is. If you have a G7 flat 9 sharp 11 chord, the root of the chord is G. So tritone dom 7 is short for dominant 7, and tritone means you're going to play the dominant 7th chord a tritone away from the root. So if we go to our next slide here, a G7 flat 9 sharp 11 voicing, we've got the G, that's our root, and then what's a tritone away from G? In case you don't know, a tritone is 3 whole steps. So 1, 2, 3. We have a D flat or a C sharp. Another way to think about it is it's the flat 5 or the sharp 11, if we're thinking in terms of G. Now, we're going to play that G, and now we're going to play a D flat 7 chord on top of that. D flat, F, A flat, and C flat. Okay. Now, that sounds all right, but we're going to tweak it a little bit to make it sound even better. But before we do, I just want to point out here that that D flat there is really a C sharp in the context of G, because remember, we're playing the sharp 11, and C sharp is the sharp 11 in the context of G. And also, this C flat is really a B in the context of G, because B is the 3rd, and C sharp is the sharp 11, F is the flat 7, and A flat is the flat 9. So you can think about it in 2 different ways. You have a D flat 7 chord, sure, but remember, the D flat is also a C sharp, and the C flat is also a B. The enharmonics depend on what context you're thinking about these chords. But at the end of the day, it's a D flat 7 chord over a G, and here's the thing. When I play it like this, it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan of root position dominant 7th chords like this. So what we're going to do is actually take the same notes, the same chord, and invert it. So here I have it written on the screen. This is the same chord, D flat 7, in 2nd inversion. So I have A flat on the bottom there. A flat, B, C sharp, and F. When I put the G below, you get the sound of G7 flat 9 sharp 11. Now that sounds a lot thicker to me, a lot juicier, and I also like this inversion. This is 1st inversion of that D flat 7 chord, and that sounds good too. You see, the advantage of inversions is they allow you to put the chord in different parts of the piano, different registers. Also, one of the other huge benefits is inversions allow you to put a different note on top of the chord. And whatever note you have in the top of the chord, like for instance, when I play this voicing here, that F, the top voice, the top note of the chord, creates what I call an implied melody. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about it in just a second. I don't want to overload you with too much, so let's keep going here and just play this voicing, the one we just learned, in a progression so you can hear what that sounds like. So here's a basic 2-5-1, D minor 7, G7 flat 9 sharp 11, C major 9. And for the D minor 7, I'm going to use a really basic root position D minor chord, easy peasy. And then for the C major 9, also pretty basic, just root position C major 9, going up in thirds, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'll put all 3 chords together. Check it out. How beautiful are those chords? And one of the reasons it works so well is because of that smooth implied melody on top. Just as a little bit of contrast, here's what a bad implied melody might sound like. Something like this, E, A flat, D. That's not a very nice sounding melody. It's gonna sound a little bit better with the chords. but on its own, it's kind of ugly. So do pay attention to your implied melody and use your inversions to help you craft one that is as musical as possible. Okay, before we go to voicing formula number 2, let's do one more example with voicing 1 in a slightly longer progression. This is the progression I played at the beginning of the video, that 3-6-2-5-1 progression. And check this out. We're going to have a really smooth implied melody here where I just keep going up in half steps. Take a listen. How nice is that? So again, my minor 7 chord's really basic. I've got an E minor 7 in root position. Then for my A7 flat 9 sharp 11, I've got the A, there's our root, and then what do I play on top? What's a tritone away from A? E flat, so I'm gonna play E flat 7. Here I have it here in first inversion. You get that really nice crunch there. And then from there, we're gonna play D minor 9, basic root position chord, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And then G7 flat 9 sharp 11. There's my D flat 7 chord in second inversion with G in the bass. And then finally I finish with this fancy chord. This is a C major 13, and I have a sharp 11 in there as well on top, that F sharp there. So the implied melody in this case is just half steps. Okay, let's go to voicing formula number 2. This one is also fairly simple, but opens up some other possibilities that are going to be really helpful. So for this one, we're going to play in the bottom part of the voicing what's called a shell voicing. And that's basically 1, 3, and 7, your basic fundamental tones of the chord. So if we're playing G7 flat 9 sharp 11, we're going to do, well, what's the 1, 3, and 7? Let me ask you. What's the 1? G. What's the 3? B. What's the 7? F. So 1, 3, 7, and then on the top part of the chord, we've got what I call a tritone triad, which is kind of like what we were doing before with the dominant 7th chord on top, a tritone away. Now we're just going to do a triad, a tritone away. So why is this helpful? Why is a triad on top more appropriate in some cases than a dominant 7th chord? Well, as you get to the upper range of the piano, and really any instrument, things start to thin out a little bit. So when you play this dominant 7th chord really high up, it starts to get a little bit thin, and in a lot of cases, a triad is going to sound a lot stronger there, a lot more stable. Like you can hear how concrete that triad is, especially when I double the outer voices there, so I have the A flat in the bottom and the top. But of course, you can do different inversions, and then when you add the shell voicing underneath, well, that's where we get the full chord. So I'm going to play the shell voicing down here, G, B, and F, and then a major triad, a tritone away, D flat major. All right. Now, I probably wouldn't use this particular voicing. Again, inversions are going to be your friend here, so I like this one a lot. All I did was take this D flat triad in root position and move it down to second inversion. By the way, you can also do inversions with the 3rd and the 7 in the shell. So if you wanted to put the 7 below the 3rd, that would be fine too, just like that. So let's use this voicing now in a progression. Again, we have a 2-5-1 here, and this time we're going to play it a little bit higher, something like this. So for that second chord, the G7 flat 9 sharp 11, what do I have? There's my shell, and then my triad on top. Now in this case, that F actually serves 2 roles there. It completes the shell voicing, and it also completes the triad. So you have some overlap there. That's totally fine. Last but not least, we've got voicing number 3. This one is one of my favorites. It's actually going to generate a somewhat new chord because we're going to sneak in an extra extension, the 13. So this one is similar to what we just had with voicing formula number 2. We've got our shell, but now we're going to do a tritone minor triad, which, as you probably know, is a minor triad, a tritone away. And it sounds like this. Well, first it looks like this. We have our shell down here, and then here's a D flat minor triad on top. Now that doesn't sound so hot. Again, I'm not going to use this voicing. I'm going to use an inversion of it. So let's go to, instead of D flat minor in root position, we're going to do D flat minor in second inversion. Now that sounds really nice. I do like that 13 on top. The E there is the 13, but I also really like to add the root on top of that, which is G. Now that is one of those woo chords. I really like this one. Sounds great, a lot of crunch, and you'll hear how good it sounds in a progression right now. So let's try this out. We're gonna do D minor 11, G13, flat 9, sharp 11. Remember, it's not a G7 chord anymore, it's G13 because we've added the E there. And then we're gonna go to C diminished major 7, followed by C major 9. And the melody we're gonna play here is actually gonna be familiar to a lot of you. This is the opening phrase to the song Misty. Okay, so we have D minor 11, and then we have our G13, flat 9, sharp 11. Here's my shell. And then I have a D flat minor triad on top. Got that 13 on the very top of the voicing, that E. At the end there, that's a C, that's a C diminished major 7 resolving to C major 9. You don't really have to learn the C diminished major 7. It sounds fine going straight to the C major 7 or C major 9, but today we're talking about the dominant chord anyway, so it doesn't matter. But let's move on to examples. This is my favorite section where we're going to use our chord of the day in 3 different genres. We've done a lot of jazz so far, so let's switch it up and go to an R&B tune, and we're going to do How Deep Is Your Love. And we got a lot of chords here. I'm not going to play the whole song, just a few measures, and you'll hear and see in the pink boxes I have our flat 9 sharp 11 chord called out there. And sometimes it's a 13 flat 9 sharp 11 chord, as you see right here, this A13 flat 9 sharp 11. So we've got a little bit of variety, and this is how it goes. Right here. There's another one. So we had 3 instances there. We have this one right here. So we've got G7 flat 9 sharp 11. In this case, I have the G down here, and then I've got a stacked D flat 7 chord in first inversion, followed by the resolution. I also do it on the A13 flat 9 sharp 11. So there's my A, my root. There's my E flat 7 chord stacked on top, and then I have a 13 and a root at the very top of the chord. And then finally, we do the 2-5 to the F major at the end there, G minor 11. And here's C7 flat 9 sharp 11. We've got the root. There's my F sharp 7 chord, and then I have the root on top again because that's the melody, which resolves to F major 7. All right, so that's our R&B example. Let's now go back to jazz for a second here. This is the classic standard Days of Wine and Roses. Just the opening phrase goes like this. Right here. Whew. All right, so I'll play it again nice and slow. There's my A minor, followed by D7 flat 9 sharp 11. In this case, I have my shell voicing, followed by A flat 7 on top. A flat is a tritone away from D, our root. Okay, I've actually got another excerpt from Days and Wine and Roses. This is at the very end of the melody. A little bit of a reharm that I did here, but check this out. Okay, so that time we had the E7 flat 9 sharp 11 chord right here. Which resolves nicely to A minor 7. And then at the end there, we've got that G minor 11, followed by C13 flat 9 sharp 11. I've got my shell, and then my minor triad, a tritone away, F sharp minor, resolving to F. Okay, one more example. This is our gospel example. Great is thy faithfulness. And I have it here in the key of C. And we're going to do 2 examples from this song. So check it out. Here we go. So right in there, that 2-5. G, 7, flat 9, sharp 11. There's D flat 7 over the G. And then I have one more example here. This is from the B section, and it goes like this. I love that there. That A13 sus going into the A13 flat 9 sharp 11. So good. Guys, if you want to learn more about how to play like that, you've got to check out my course, Chord Theory for R&B Piano. It's great for jazz, it's great for gospel, it's great for soul, and it's basically everything I know about how to play these kinds of chords and progressions. And as I said, if you use the code SPRING30EXT, you can save 30%, not just on that course, but on all of my courses, all of my bundles, on the soloing stuff too. So I'm going to link it on the screen and in the description below. And if you want another video, you can check it out right here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.